It's 6 o'clock, but we're going to wait a few more minutes. We need at least one more commission member to reach quorum. And we have a couple that we think are on the way, so we'll just wait a few more minutes.
Okay, I'm here. Justin Lewis is here. Hello, can anybody hear me?
Welcome to the May 4th, 2023 meeting of the City of Des Moines Plan and Zoning Commission. Before we begin, I will read the Commission's rules and procedures. The Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plats, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or Development Services Department staff for details on council hearings. Applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed, and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless an individual present or member of the Commission requests that that item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. I'd like to ask for a motion from the Commission to approve the minutes of the April 20th meeting.
This is Carolyn. I'll move.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any abstentions or passes? Abstain. Justin, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here on the line.
How do you vote for the minutes?
I vote to approve.
Thank you. I will now read through the consent agenda items. Item number 1 is a request from Charles E. Connigs and Shirley Connigs for the following regarding property located at 7905 Southeast 14th Street. Determination as to whether the requested zoning is in conformance with Plan DSM, to amend the Plan DSM to revise the future land use classification of a portion of the property in the northwest corner of the lot from parks and open space with development control zone to low-density residential, and to rezone a portion of the property generally in the northwest corner from F flood district to N1A residential district to allow the construction of a new accessory building. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like this removed from the public hearing and heard, or I'm sorry, removed from consent agenda and heard tonight in public hearing? Are you raising your hand? No? I bet. Okay. Anyone on the commission who would like this heard? Okay. Seeing none, item 1 will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 2, a request from Lars Vins for review and approval of a public hearing site plan for Type 2 design alternatives for property located in the vicinity of 1157 12th Street to allow construction of a 624 square foot, 23 foot tall detached garage within the front yard in an N3A neighborhood district where the front yard location is not allowed and the maximum allowed height is 17 feet. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to hear this item? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission who wants this item discussed? Okay, seeing none, item 2 will remain on the consent agenda. If I can get a commission member for a motion to To move to, yes,
This is
thank
Carolyn.
you.
I will
I'm
move.
stumbling over my words tonight.
I'll move the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Justin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we will continue with the public hearing items. Item number 3, request from RM Madden Construction for review of a public hearing site plan and for a type 2 design alternative for property located at 2437 East Douglas Avenue for construction of a House A building type in an N1B neighborhood district with an attached garage that comprises 42.6% of the front facade width of the house, where the maximum allowable width is 30% of the front facade. And Kyle Larson from staff will present.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Kyle Larson, planning staff. Be presenting this item as well as the following item. Give me one moment here to the applicant for item 3 and 4 is RM Madden Construction. They're looking to develop 2437 East Douglas with a single-family home. They're seeking one type 2 design alternative. That design alternative is for the overhead garage door width. The N1B zoning district only allows up to 30% of the front facade to be encompassed by that overhead garage door width. The house plan that they have proposed exceeds that. It comes in at 42.6%. So it's just the one type 2 design alternative for the overhead garage door that you're hearing tonight. The vicinity map, you can see the subject properties on the south side of East Douglas Avenue near the intersection of Lay Street. This is in the Douglas Acres neighborhood on the northeast side of Des Moines. This is a street view to give you some context of the neighborhood and location that this item is located in. The subject property is on the left side of the street, just in the distance past those homes that you see. This is a view looking back to the east of the subject site. It is on the right side of the street there. You can see the silt sock around the site. That's part of the erosion control that the builder has put down. This is a photo that I took this morning. You can see the two buildable lots next to each other. The builder has started to bring in some fill from off-site. This is the submitted site plan. The front yard setback, as you can see, is 30 feet. The side setback on the east side is 7 feet and 15 feet on the west side. You see the location of the proposed driveway and sidewalk, driveway leading up to that 2-car attached garage. These are the house plans for 2437 that have been submitted by the builder. Again, there's one type 2 design alternative that is in front of you tonight. I've kind of indicated that here with a little illustration from their front elevation. 42.6% is that overhead garage door width. You can see how that kind of relates to the overall width of the front facade. And again, type 2 design alternative for that overhead garage door width. The allowable width is up to 30% for the N1B zoning district house type A. There are a couple of homes within the general vicinity that do have attached garage doors that do face the street. By and large, the character of the neighborhood is to have a detached garage, but I did want to point out a couple of examples that are similar to what the builder is proposing. This house is located at 3941 Lay Street. It was constructed in 2009. 2009 obviously would have been under the old code. It would have been approved under the old code. It would not have been subject to the current regulations for house type A. but I just wanted to point this out because it does have a similar two-car attached garage facing Lay Street that encompasses 42.1% of that front facade. This is a very similar plan to what Madden is proposing to construct on East Douglas. This is just north of the subject property on Lay Street. This house is across the street and diagonal to the subject property, closer in proximity to that first house that I showed. But again, it has an overhead garage door, attached garage that faces East Douglas Avenue. Based on my measurements, it encompasses about 36% of the front facade. This house was actually constructed in 1914, but it was remodeled in 1970 to add that attached garage. As I mentioned before, staff is recommending approval of the Type 2 design alternative for the overhead garage door. Staff feels that it is in general conformance with the character of the neighborhood. As you are aware, we do notice neighbors within 250 feet of subject property. Here's the notification map. Have not received any comments back this week, either in favor or against this project. That concludes my presentation. Open it up to any questions.
Commissioner?
When you said this week, do you mean like so there was nothing from the first time this was on, this is a continuation of the one from 2 weeks ago, so you're saying there's no new comments this week? Are there any total comments?
Since the last meeting, I have not received any new comments.
Gotcha, so there still were comments before, and the
Correct.
neighborhood was clearly here before?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Kyle, what is the average setback of other houses on the street?
It's a great question, and it is something that we take into consideration when doing our initial review. Bear with me while I get back to our map here. So the code for infill lots, pre-existing lots in an established neighborhood, the code requires us to look at the adjoining lots on 2 lots to the east or west, in this case, of the subject properties to establish an average setback. So you can see the 2 lots to the west, pretty uniform setback there. The 2 lots to the east, you have a property that's set back a little bit further, and then you reestablish that kind of consistent setback dimension going east. The average setback in this case came to right at 30 feet, which is what Madden Construction is looking to place the houses on the property for that front yard setback.
So in your opinion, if the house was set back farther, for example, the house to the east,
Mhm.
in your opinion, then would that not be visibly intrusive the way it perhaps could be if it is only 30 feet setback from the street?
If the homes had an increased setback further from the road, I think that's a safe assumption, what you just described, that they would be less, visible to the passerby.
Thank you.
Any further questions from commissioners?
Can I ask out of curiosity, you cited 2 homes in the neighborhood that were within a certain radius away.
Yeah.
Within that radius because it was basically a block and a bit away, 39, wait, how far away is 3914?
3941.
How far away is 3941? How many blocks away is that?
It's to the north it's outside the view here. It's to the north on Lay Street on the east side. Lay is a long block. There really isn't a cross street for quite some distance. But I would imagine it's probably 2 to 3 blocks north if you're taking a typical residential block.
So you gave us basically 2 houses that are appropriate for this design. How many houses exist within that radius if you use that as the farthest point? I mean, is it tens? Is it a few hundred? I mean, how many houses are within that radius that you define that give you just 2?
There's 10s. I mean, it's probably 30 to 40 within that radius that are more of the detached garage in the rear yard type of character.
Okay, so vast majority.
It
Vast
is.
majority.
It is the majority.
We've got-
Yep,
We've got one that was built sort of recently, one that was a remodel from a long time ago, none under the current ordinance. Is that right?
correct.
Okay.
And that's visible here in the aerial that you can see within this captured image. By and large, it is detached garages in the rear yard. That is the character in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. The applicant now has 10 minutes to present.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. First, I want to take this time to apologize for missing last week's meeting. I was under the impression there was going to be no speakers in opposition. The only reason that being was because they were outside of that 250 feet, so they were not notified, and I did not know. Otherwise, I would have been here and stated my case. I do want to start off, I'm just going to read what I sent in. It kind of sums it up quickly. So, a 16-foot wide overhead garage door on the Hayes plan, which is what we're proposing, comes to 42.6% of the front facade width. The maximum width of garage door under a Type 1 design alternative would allow 14.5 feet. Our request is only for an additional 1.5 feet of garage door of what a Type 1 design alternative would allow. The reason for us wanting to put this house plan in a zoning where it doesn't quite fit the house type is due to the grade. There's quite a bit of fall, hence why I'm bringing in a fair amount of filled material. And there are a little bit larger lots than what we're used to anyways. So we thought a larger house and attached garage made a little more sense for this area. There's a lot of fall from the east to west, and having the front door close to the garage helps not have to build a retaining wall, keeps a more uniform yard. There's also, I'll skip ahead here. This neighborhood is zoned N1B, but the neighborhood has a mix of a lot of types of different houses. Some areas have pockets of similar homes, but throughout the entire neighborhood, the character varies very widely. And then we did consider building a smaller house without a garage that fits kind of that general look of the neighborhood a little bit more. But if we were to propose that, we would not propose a garage. It would just be a shed in the back. And over the years, when I drive by houses that we have built in the past, and we do not build an attached garage or a detached garage, maybe 20 to 30% of those houses have garages that the homeowner built. We advocate for that because get a little bit of sweat equity. People get more out of their house and take more pride in it, but oftentimes people just don't have the capital to do that. I could show a proposed plan. I don't know, I'm not sure what button to press on this. I also talked with some of the neighbors that were here last week or 2 weeks ago, and just kind of got their opinion on it. Talked to the president of the HOA there. He did not express any concern about these houses. He was actually an advocate for the garage, just because of what I mentioned. Most people don't build the garage after. If we don't build it when we're building the house, and then there's mowers and snow blowers and shovels outside, so he would rather have the garage on the front than stuff laying around. So this is the proposed plan, or what we would propose if this does not get approved. It's a very common plan that we've done over the years with updates. The driveways would be on the left side of this house. It is about 200 square feet smaller, so the value it brings to the neighborhood would be a little bit lower. I believe the first plan we're wanting to build would be listed around 300 to 320,000, where this plan would be around 250, which we did see. Most times we fight that pretty hard because when we focus on infill and not as desirable lots. So, but we saw these as a little more valuable, so we wanted to provide a home that was a little bit larger, and then still allow people to have the backyard with the attached garage. That's all.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, Commissioner.
Sorry about that.
Do you mind running through those numbers again for a quick second? So you're saying that basically for the one with the garage on the front, it's going to cost, you're going to put it on the market at 350, and for the other option, you put it on the, I'm sorry, for 320, and for the other one, you put it on the market at 250. Was that with a detached garage, or is that just with a driveway with no garage?
That's just with the driveway with the shed in the back, which we can get approved with the type 1 design alternative.
Okay, so you just have a shed. So as far as like building the garage or anything, there's no reason you build the garage. Like there's no increased value in having the garage versus a shed because you identified that they don't really sell as well without a garage, but you wouldn't want to build a garage.
It
For why?
kind of depends on the area, size of the lot, desirability of the area, I guess. And we kind of saw this area being able to withstand a more expensive house and still sell. Did that answer your question?
I'm not entirely sure. So right now, you're going to provide a series of features which include 2 cars I can park in a covered area with a house, right?
Yes.
You're saying that the living space you're going to be able to put in if you put if you have access to detached garage is actually smaller. And even though the garage is required to sell it in the first example, you don't need a garage to sell it in the second example. That's where I'm confused, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding what you're saying.
I guess the only reason I brought up this other house was just to show what else we would propose. I guess when the new code came out, garages were really advocated for, and we pushed back pretty hard at the start, and now we're kind of coming around to it a little bit more. It is a case-by-case situation, but yeah, I guess that's the reason why I brought that up.
So, sorry, Chris, I'm going to interrupt just a little bit. So you said the two prices, the one with the garage would be 320,
300 to 320, correct?
300 to 320, and the one without a garage would be around 250.
Yes.
So, I mean, not to get in the weeds here, but so a detached garage can't be built for that 50,000 range? Probably not? Or-
Well, the house we're proposing is about 200 square feet more as well. We don't make a whole lot of changes to our plans. This is more of a plan that's in newer developments, but it did still fit very closely to fitting in the zoning, so that's why we proposed it. But we could build a garage, but nothing saying that we couldn't do that, a detached garage. But we might as well just do the shed and make it a little bit more affordable with that size of house, and then let somebody build the sweat equity if they'd like to. We don't have a version of the other plan without a garage.
Okay. Any further questions? Yep, go ahead.
Could we have the streetscape photo again up on the screen, please, Kyle?
Oh, sorry, everybody has access to it.
Yeah, this is the one I was thinking about. Now, this is East Douglas Avenue, am I correct?
Yes, it's looking to the west.
And the proposed lot or site is to the,
On the left side of the street, trying to see my cursor here, in this general area. It's past these homes.
I have a question, but let me unload my thoughts first of all. What strikes me about this streetscape is the horizontal feel that the setback, the uniform setback of these mid-century modern houses, more or less, give to the streetscape. You feel that there is this horizontal uniformity. And so my question is, could the house that you're proposing be set back farther from the street to let the eye view this horizontal unity without having your house with the snout garage or the front, garage, whatever you want to call it, breaking up that sense of unity.
I believe those houses, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but the houses to the left there all have a 30-foot setback? Correct. So the new proposed houses would fall right in line with the houses you see in that picture.
But that's my question. It would fall in terms of the setback, but it wouldn't fall in terms of the visual appearance, because it would break up the uniformity of this horizontal and linear feeling, while if the garage was set back farther than the 30 feet, you see, you would still have the sense of the visible horizontal feel.
Well,
Is that possible?
you're saying push the entire house back to like say a 40-foot setback.
Something along that line, yes.
I guess I'm not sure what that would gain. I guess what I'm trying to understand, you like having them all in a line, the uniformity of having them lined up. I guess we wouldn't set the garage back any further. We wouldn't push it back into the house. And we don't really want to push the whole house back another 10 feet. It just adds costs with the sewer and water and the driveway. And then you lose some of your backyard as well. Yeah.
Carol, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
What is the square footage of the homes that the models that you proposed, the 320 and the 250?
Yeah, so the first one you saw that Kyle showed is 1,313 square feet.
Uh-huh.
The other plan is 1,091.
Okay. And those both have basements?
Yes, full basements.
And just looking on Realtor in Douglas Acres, the pricing is much lower for existing homes versus what you're proposing these new builds to be. It seems a little out of market, frankly. How did you arrive at those price points?
Those are just generally, we've built a lot of both of these plans over the years, or plans very similar in size and quality, so we kind of know those numbers based off other plans. We do a lot of infill construction in Des Moines, about 20 houses a year, give or take.
Uh-huh.
So some are by the fairgrounds just north of there, where the area is barely able to take new construction. Other areas are by Wakanda Club, where we would propose a house like this, and it would fit right in. I think this being close to the east side of Des Moines, the northeast side, just like Southeast Polk Schools, the lots have a little more privacy and are wider. They'd be daylight or walkout. There's a number of things that we thought, all right, well, someone might drive by this when it's built and go, wow, I would love to live in this neighborhood and have a brand new house, and would pay that price. I guess that's just
Okay.
a kind of a risk that we're willing to take.
Okay, I mean, you're the expert on that, but I mean, you drove around there, and it was displayed that the houses are generally a driveway that goes along the side with the garage and back, and for $70,000, it seems like a big amount of money that you say a garage basically brings to the table.
And 200 square feet, that's actually where most of that is coming from, I'd say. Yeah, I mean, I agree, the character overall is that detached garage in the back, but if you drive through a new development, which I'm not comparing this to a new development, but there's a reason people aren't building houses with a detached garage in the back anymore. Nobody really wants that. People want to pull in, go right into their home. They want easy access in and out. They want a full backyard. And most of the houses that were built in that neighborhood were built with no garage, and then somebody built it later. I went through dozens of houses on the Polk County Assessor where a house was built in 57 and then garage was built in 61, for example. So I just think it was how things were done then. So I think they're just trying to push some evolution to home building in the modern day.
Carol, just to put in my 2 cents, I very recently looked into replacing our 2-car garage, and the price point is about $70,000. So.
Yeah, I know
And
it's
it's a detached garage. It's
No,
pricey.
It's detached? Yeah, I know they're a lot. I was going to put in a 1.5, and they're telling me it's 55 grand, and it doesn't even come with a bathroom, you know? I can't live in it.
Yeah.
But it just seems that people, even though we try to get people to get around without using their car, it seems like people still love their car, right? Want to have a place to put it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're the guy that sells houses, but yeah, that's the last thing
Okay,
I have to say.
thank you, Carol. Carolyn, did you? No. Okay. Right. I think that it fell into the purview of just sort of the design and whether or not the garage
Right.
was essential to the design, because it is something that the request is for the percentage increase of the facade.
Yeah, I would point out that this zoning district does allow a garage on the front facade. It just can't exceed more than 30%.
Right.
So his other option would be to, if you would narrow that garage to a 1-car garage, you could probably meet that 30%, but.
Well, and the other option would be to pick a plan that was wider for the
That's true, too.
non-garage part, and I
True.
don't know what the side setbacks were, but I know one side was 15 feet, so I
Yeah.
feel like that might have been doable as well. Okay, any other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, if is anybody in the audience tonight who would like to speak in support of this item, you may come forward now. Okay. Are there any speakers in opposition to this item? You may come forward now. Okay, anyone neutral want to speak? No? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it to the commission for discussion.
I think this is a good project, and I think it satisfies the market, and the builder's willing to take the risk for the price. I would support this, supporting staff as is, and I will make a move, we support staff.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Any discussion for
Oops,
the,
that's my motion.
okay,
My only discussion piece is I think that with both yours and Carol's looking at the market, it's not clear to me that this market's going to support 350 anyway. There hasn't been a clear basis for data for that, which I find challenging, and the neighborhood was both aggressively against it, and it is completely out of character with all the houses around it. So I understand the motion, I understand the theory of it, but the big 2-car garage on the front, I would be opposed to this, so I'll be voting against it.
okay, thank you. Okay, the motion is to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand.
Motion passes.
Oh, we need Justin's vote. Justin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Is that a yes? Yeah, okay.
All right,
All right, thank
now
you.
the motion passes.
Okay. Okay. Item number 4 is nearly identical to item number 3. It is for property located next door to it at 2445 East Douglas Avenue for the same waiver. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought I heard something. For the same design alternative for the overhead door that comprises 42.6% of the front facade. Kyle?
Yeah, I won't take as much time with my presentation. As you mentioned, this is essentially the exact same request from Madden Construction, just on the adjoining lot. All of the site photos remain the same. The one variation would be some slight modifications to the front facade in terms of some of the elements that they're looking to add to differentiate the two, even though the floor plate and floor plan behind the facade is the same. They're adding a few little variations to their facade detailing that you can see here. But like I said, the Type 2 design alternative for the overhead garage door is the same. Again, staff is recommending approval of this Type 2 design alternative as well. Again, no comments since the past meeting, either in favor or against. Any questions?
Thank you, Kyle. Okay, following the same process, the applicant may come forward.
Just for the record, these houses would be listed around 300, pushing 320, and any new construction that we propose is a minimum of 250,000. So it's not too far off from what we would be doing regardless, just for the record. Otherwise, all the same points.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak in support of this item? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? And neutral. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the commission.
I make the same motion again for approval.
Figured. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. Justin, how do you vote?
I vote to approve, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
motion passes 7-4.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 5, a request from the Cambodian Buddhist Society, represented by Noi, for the following regarding 2 parcels located in the vicinity of 1301 19th Street. Determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM, and to rezone the property from NX1 Neighborhood Mixed District to RX1 Mixed Use District to allow the reuse of an existing building as a grocery store. And Shreyoshi will be here from staff to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Shreyoshi Chakraborty, planning staff. Item 5 before you is a rezoning request for a couple parcels in the vicinity of 1301 19th Street. The requested action is to rezone the property from NX1 Neighborhood Mixed District to RX1 Mixed Use District to allow the use of an existing building as a neighborhood grocery store. So I'm going to give you some background information here regarding the property as well as the surrounding area. This subject property is within the King Irving neighborhood, and as you can see, this is the subject property. It's at the intersection of several streets that kind of converge at a skewed angle. There's Carpenter Avenue, Kiyosakwa Way, 19th Street, and the property is right here at the corner of the intersection. The neighborhood in the vicinity is quite diverse. There's a mix of uses. As you can see here, if you look immediately to the north and to the east, there is low-density residential. To the west, there's a fairly large government complex. Polk County Health Services has a few big parcels to the west of the property, and of course there's other higher intensity mix of uses along the 19th Street and Kiyosakwa Way transportation corridor. So I have a few pictures here to give you some context of the proposed building and the property that we are talking about. So this is the existing building. This is looking at it from the back, from 19th Street. There is a paved area immediately to the north, which was being used as an existing parking. for the building. The building was being used by the Cambodian Buddhist Society as a temple and a religious assembly space. The proposed rezoning is to allow the reuse of the building as a grocery store. If you remember the shape of the parcel, it was fairly long. So to the north is a open kind of grassy area that butts into the residential area. It's all fenced off of 19th Street. This is the existing building that we are talking about. It actually butts up right up to the sidewalk along Carpenter Avenue. The sidewalk is about, it's wide, it's about 8 feet wide, but you can see the building butts up right up to the sidewalk here and pretty close to the intersection itself. Again, this is looking at the back of the property, the existing paved area from the alley that's in disrepair but was being used as parking spaces for the existing use. And then this is the access off of the alley that comes off of Carpenter Avenue, and again, the back side of the building. So just a few pictures to give you some context. So the size of the site is roughly 0.7 acres. The building is about 5,000 square feet. The existing land use for the area is neighborhood mixed use, and neighborhood mixed use as defined by our land use plan is small scale mixed use development, which are typically located at intersections of busy collectors and arterial streets and along major transportation corridors, and can include uses such as small retail offices, restaurants, and other service-oriented development. Low, medium density residential may also be included in this particular land use. So the current zoning for the subject property is NX1, and the applicant is proposing to rezone it to RX1, and that's to allow the grocery store, which falls under the commercial use category. Staff feels that the proposed zoning district of RX1 is appropriate for this area. It is consistent with the neighborhood mixed use, land use designation that has been designated for this area. It's also generally consistent with the character of the corridor, which, as you saw, was it included a mix of uses with easy access to the surrounding adjacent neighborhood. So being able to be more walkable, it's along a DART transit route. There's a bus stop right adjacent to this subject property. So it's able to provide easy transportation access. There's also future plans to have a shared use path along 19th Street, which would allow easy non-motorized connection from downtown. However, because of the really, really close proximity of residential uses just immediately to the east, and also lack of any off-street parking in the immediate vicinity, as you saw from the aerial, that it's kind of locked in right there. There's no access to any low intensity street where there's on-street parking. Staff felt that to support this this rezoning, there were some zoning conditions that were necessary so that this proposed use did not become a nuisance for the surrounding neighbors. I also wanted to point out that when staff was reviewing this, we did look at the King Irving neighborhood plan, which was developed by the neighbors and city staff several years ago, and the proposed use does conform to some of the goals that were outlined within the neighborhood plan, so long as the property did comply with the recommended zoning conditions. So with that, I'm going to go through the zoning conditions that staff is proposing. There's 7 conditions here, and I'll go through each one of them for the benefit of for you all as well as the public that's in attendance today. So the first condition is prohibition of any sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, beer, and or any other controlled substance on the premise. Prohibition of any gambling, games, arcade games, video games, games of chance, or any other comparable gaming on the premise. Any business on this property shall only operate between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday to Sunday, so essentially all 7 days. Any business on this property shall institute a no strict, no loitering policy, conspicuously post 1 or more no loitering signs, and cooperate with police in addressing any such issues. Litter and trash receptacles shall be located at convenient locations inside and outside the premises, and operators of the business shall remove all trash and debris from the premises and adjoining public areas on a daily basis. Any business on this property shall provide at least the minimum number of off-street parking spaces required by city code, and landscaping and screening will be provided as per Chapter 135 and to the satisfaction of the Planning and Urban Design Administrator. So just wanted to read those out to you. And then moving further, just wanted to report out on the neighborhood meeting that the applicant did. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting, I believe, on April 21st, and provided us a summary. These were the neighbors that were invited to the meeting. Here's the sign-in sheet. The applicant had a survey that was provided to the attendees to get a feel for what kind of grocery needs the neighborhood had. It's just to kind of get a feel for what are some of their needs. I believe the applicant is here and they could provide a better feedback on what sort of responses they got. And here is a summary. I'm just going to zoom in here for your benefit so you can read through. The applicant has outlined some of the discussion items. Some of the objections that the neighbors had included this list right here. You can see increased traffic, increase in the number of vagrants, loitering, and a potential farmers market on University Avenue, increased littering, parking, availability of alcohol and other substances, condition of the alley, hours of operation, signage, and the future use of the zone properties. I believe the applicant tried to address some of these concerns. These are outlined here. And I can come back to this if you have any further questions. We did receive quite a bit of response to this, so I want to move on to those. This is the consent map. As you can see, about 62.4% of the adjacent properties are in, or properties within 250 feet are in opposition to this particular rezoning. I will point out that there's 3 large parcels that belong to Polk County, and Polk County expressed opposition to this rezoning as well. And these are the comment cards, a couple in support, and then we have several in opposition. We have quite a few detailed letters that came in opposition, and I can just hover here for a few seconds so you can scan through these. I'm happy to come back to these as well if you have questions.
And I see the author of this letter is in the audience, so maybe when she's addressing the commission, we can leave this up.
Okay.
Yeah, the author of this letter is also here, so we'll put it up later.
I'll just, I'll come back to them, or the authors, when they're speaking, we can pull them up again, so you can look through those. This is the letter from Polk County, and I believe they're not in attendance, so I'll just, oh, okay. So I'll just move on. We also received a petition signed by, I believe, over 60 residents. So I have all of the names and signatures here, and I'll just go through these.
If they're highlighted at the left, that means they're within the 250-foot notification area.
Yep. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions, or if you want me to go back to any of the slides again, I'm happy to do that.
Commissioners have any questions? Johnny?
My question, this is a change of use, and it would require a site plan after this, correct?
Yes, that's correct. After the rezoning goes through, the applicant will be required to go through a site planning process and bring the site to full compliance at that time.
So, as a follow-up to that, wouldn't the condition number 6 and 7 just happen by nature of having a site plan required?
Yeah, that's true. They would be required to comply with parking and for landscaping. I think we just added that just to provide some assurance to the neighborhood that that would happen. And also by making it a zoning condition, it would be harder for them to seek type 2 design alternatives to try to get out of those at a later date.
What about type 1?
Yeah, it would also preclude type 1s.
Okay, thank you.
What is the minimum number of off-street parking spaces?
I believe it's
So-
1 space per 200 square feet. per region.
400 square feet, so about 12 parking spaces would be required.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
Yeah, following on that, so 12 parking spaces will be needed. How much square foot is back there? I mean, is there really no way to hit 12 spaces?
Yes, they definitely, I'll go back up here. So, so the property is, the rezoning is for this the entirety of these 2 parcels. And so there is, if the applicant were to utilize this entire space up here, there would definitely be more than sufficient space to provide for those 12 parking spaces in addition to other landscaping and other improvements that are needed.
And I guess I'm also curious that, so a few of these, for example, the no loitering, like the loitering signage and that sort of other thing, how many other buildings are subject to that? Like how many other buildings actually have a no loitering restriction put on them?
I can answer that. If a property would go to the Board of Adjustment to get a conditional use to sell alcohol, they would have to comply with that. So several of these conditions would apply if they were selling alcohol.
So they're not selling alcohol. There is another board that actually addresses those issues. Why are we addressing them here?
Well, I guess to be honest, we've heard quite a few people and from the applicant tell us that the operators of the proposed business are current operators of another property elsewhere in the city that has been a nuisance. And I guess we've also heard that they used to operate a business at 1829 6th Avenue that had been a nuisance property. So we were wanting to make sure that those same concerns aren't repeated here. But we have not been able to confirm that it's the same people. So we're hoping that the applicant can address that tonight as well. And we've tried to reach out to the applicant this week to get an answer on that, and we've been unsuccessful.
So just making sure we're putting in pre-nuisance provisions when there's other groups that are in better position to do that, when we actually know that there's a need for nuisance, when we don't have
Right.
knowledge of that yet, right?
The only other group that would be able to do that would be the Board of Adjustment, and that's only if they request a conditional use to sell alcohol, which they've indicated they don't intend to sell alcohol. So if they don't intend to sell alcohol, they would not need a conditional use, so then we wouldn't have an opportunity to put some of these conditions on at a later date. And once they're there, they're there.
Do the additional things that you are prohibiting or proposing to prohibit, are those also things that would have to go before the Board of Adjustment?
No. Like the first one, the alcohol sales would have to go before the Board of Adjustment. The second one, it just needs to be licensed by the state. There's a game called Fish. I don't know if you've seen it at other places around town where it can become problematic if people are loitering to play these games of chance, because they can win tokens or coupons to buy products at the store. So those have become problematic, but those do not require any conditional use approvals or anything from the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you.
Does that include lottery tickets?
No, that would not.
So they could do lottery?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Is there any discussion or concern about the property being possibly divisible? I mean, could they sell that back northern section?
That is a possibility. Like the condition says, they would have to provide the minimum number of off-street parking spaces, but there would likely still be some land available to the north that they could sell off.
So, but we're still going to do the whole property today? There's no way just to do a portion of it and leave the northern
It would be
half?
in the commission's purview to recommend only, I don't know what it would be, maybe the southern 200 feet or something like that.
Okay.
But
If we did something like that, though, could you actually develop a parking lot on the other side of it, or wouldn't that prevent the access to a parking lot being there?
if the new other building was built north of the parking lot, I don't see how that, I don't think that would preclude anything. I don't know if there'd be a whole lot of space left, though, after they put in a 12 stall parking lot.
So we'd recommend split zoning on one lot?
That's not staff's recommendation, but that would be within the commission's purview if you felt that was appropriate.
And just to give a context of this is roughly 200 feet, the length of the parcel right here.
I'm also slightly curious in general as far as strategy on these types of buildings, forgetting the other pieces. We have parking here that is, there's more than ample to hit the minimum we need for 12 spaces. I mean, like, you can just sort of see from across the way, I think you hit probably 40 to 50 spaces, but if you really want to. But I guess the question is, number two, if we do have public land buildings that aren't actually using all their spaces, is it a policy in the past to actually count those as usable? Because, I mean, in other jurisdictions, for example, in California, the city of Sunnyvale, for example, will allow for public counting of spaces that are underused to reduce the number of actual spaces we need, reduce the actual water runoff issues, heat island issues. Do we ever do that?
We do that in some places. I know Ingersoll has done that, where if one parking lot has excess stalls, we can use some of those excess stalls to meet the parking requirements on adjoining properties. I don't know that we would do that across 19th Street, since 19th Street's a pretty busy thoroughfare. I don't think we want to be encouraging more people to cross there than needed, especially if you're familiar with that intersection. It's kind of, it's wonky, just because the way Keogh comes in at an angle, so it is a tricky intersection to cross.
I don't want to veer too far off into site plan theorizing, so do the commissioners have any further questions for staff?
Yeah, I just want to make a statement. I'm not okay with the loitering. What if your clause or policy? I'm just, That's all I would say. I'm not okay with that. I don't think that we should. Yeah, we can tell people to carry on, but as a black male, anything can really be labeled loitering. And then when we start getting the police involved, and that's a whole nother subject. So that's one item I'm not supporting, and I would ask for that to be removed.
Okay. I believe what Justin said, sorry, Justin, we're having a little hard time hearing you, but I believe you said you're opposed to the no loitering signs being posted as part of the staff's conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just the signs. I think it's the policy of how we label what is loitering. America has a great history of labeling black folks as loiterers or jaywalking. And I think that's something that we need to address. So until we can come to terms with that, I can't support any type of policy that's not deeply defined as what is loitering. So that's my statement. That's the only thing that just hurts me. My apologies.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Any other discussion, questions from the commission? Not discussion, questions for staff?
One last question on the loitering. Does Miller's have a no loitering requirement on it? Miller's Hardware, it's basically right, it's
Right, on the other
exact
side.
other side.
I have no idea if they have any signs
They
posted.
don't.
Justin, did you have
And
a,
then, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris, just the neighborhood as well. It's off of TOA over by a prominent black neighborhood. I'm not okay for it. I'm just not. And I'm actually getting frustrated thinking about it. We need to take that off and have another conversation about that. I'm sorry. That's just not okay. And I know it's about a former owner. Let's address the owner. Let's set some set rules, but to broadly apply it and then getting the police involved in a black neighborhood, I'm not okay with it. Not at all.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Any more questions for staff?
Just for the record, for Justin's knowledge, I am aggressively in support of his position. That's the source of my questions, is this seems like an equitable application of something that's a pre-nuisance thing that seems really, really problematic.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, thank you. The applicant can now come forward. You have 10 minutes to present. Please state your name and address before you start.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission. I am Dhammapala Bhikkhu. Dhammapala is an ordination name, and Bhikkhu describes my job position, more or less. I am speaking on behalf of Noi Nui, who is president of the Cambodian Buddhist Society Incorporated. His first language is not English, and so he's been involved in all of this, as have I. And so I'm speaking on his behalf. The Cambodian Buddhist Society is located at 1301 19th Street. I myself live in West Des Moines, and I'm just kind of here as a spokesperson.
Don't mind me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I will do that.
Just when you're done speaking, that would be
Okay. As previously mentioned, this building is about 5,000 square feet, a little more than that. And I have been in 2 conversations with the proposed buyer who wants to put in a grocery store. A grocery store, a neighborhood grocery store, and all across the United States and in Canada, studies have been done. A neighborhood grocery store brings economic benefit to the neighborhood. Some estimates are as high as 40+% of what's spent at a neighborhood grocery store stays in the neighborhood. There would be additional jobs. I don't know how many. And that would be a benefit to the neighborhood. Environmentally, people can walk. They can bicycle. And they don't have to drive as far if they're going to use their car. So it's an environmental benefit to the neighborhood. Socially, people who shop at a neighborhood grocery store tend to get to know each other. It tends to build a sense of community. It can help unify a neighborhood and instill pride in the neighborhood. People will begin to say, yeah, this is where I live. So those are some of the benefits for it. The temple presently is used fewer than 25 days a year. The rest of the time, the building is sitting empty, the parking lot is empty, and in the past, there have been problems with people moving in, almost squatting, camping. If a grocery store was in there, and if they were open 250 days a year, that significantly reduces the possibility, the probability that loitering would occur. There is a fence running north and south along 19th Street. It has been said that Polk County is putting in a sobering center and a detention center for the 72-hour mental health holds. And an issue was raised, well, these people are going to be out on the street all times of day or night, and that's convenient to go loiter. Well, the owner has said to me that he has already, at his current location, has retained security. He's hired a security company, and he has security lighting. And this would continue on into the new building. Just to clarify something, in Ms. Connolly's letter here, she mentions that she would be opposed to a convenience store. And this is not a convenience store, it is a grocery store. There will be fresh fruits and vegetables, there will be canned items, there will be no butcher shop, no fresh meat, but there will be frozen foods. So it's a grocery store, not a convenience store. The remarks about increased traffic. When we had our pre-planning meeting with the City Commission, traffic department was there, and they had no issues with increased traffic. They did say that they would want us to use the alley to access the parking because they wouldn't allow a curb cut along 19th Street, and that makes good sense. They also said we would have to improve the alley at least up to the edge of the parking lot. And the owner said that was no problem, he'd agreed to that. The number of parking spaces. I left some papers at home, so I don't have it, but I think it's 114 feet running east to west along the north side. That's how long the building is. And that area is already paved. And I don't have a calculator, but if you divide 114 by 17 feet, which is the required width of a parking area, you get 8 or 9 or 10, I'm not too sure. The entire building would not be the retail space. There would be storage area, probably about 3,500 square feet would be actual retail space, which comes out to about 9 parking spaces, which can, I think, I haven't done the math, but I think you could easily put 9 spaces direct in along the north side of the building. So overall, putting a grocery store in there would be an improvement. It would be a benefit to the community.
Thank you very much. Does commissioners have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Will they be selling fresh fruits and vegetables and meat, fish, and poultry?
I was told they will not be selling fresh meat, fish, and poultry. They would have some frozen items, but yes, they will have fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. They will have canned and packaged items. Coffee and tea and sardines if you want them, I guess.
Can I clarify one point? Did you say that a traffic study was done that showed no noticeable traffic impact to the proposed use of the site?
No. Traffic said that the traffic department did not see any necessity in doing a traffic study. They did not think there would be a significant enough increase in vehicular traffic to warrant a traffic study.
Is that correct? Okay, so the argument that the traffic issues would be a problem, city doesn't see that as an accurate argument against this? Is that right?
The engineering department said that the proposed grocery store wouldn't generate enough vehicular trips to necessitate a traffic study. So they said the adjoining streets can accommodate that.
Yeah, so it did not trigger the need for a traffic impact study. The only recommendation from traffic department was that no access be off of 19th Street. As he mentioned, all of the access was to be through the alley off of Carpenter Avenue.
And that alley can be safely used?
Yes, it has to be improved, but it can be used for access to the parking lot.
Right.
Any more questions from the commission?
Question here.
Yeah.
Are there any other grocery stores owned by the person that wants to develop this building that you're aware of that we can use as reference?
My understanding, and I don't have an address, my understanding is that the buyers who are proposing buying this building do have a grocery store some distance away, I don't know where exactly. But they had two issues there, what I was told. One is that the landlord is not a good neighbor in the neighborhood. The landlord, is not a good landlord. That when things need to be fixed, the landlord doesn't fix them. When things need to be taken care of around the building, they're not taken care of. And the other is that the proposed buyers have outgrown that space, and they would like to have a larger space. That answers the question, I think.
Is this grocery store going to be maybe like an ethnic food, like, you know, like a Mexican grocery store or African grocery store? It's just going to be a grocery store.
You know, I've completed 76 years. When I was young, lived in an area of town, we had an A&P and a Kroger. And the A&P and the Kroger were about the size of this building. And they had, you know, housewives went to the grocery store every day and picked up what they needed. It's kind of in my mind, this hasn't been said by the owners, but in my mind, it's kind of a throwback to when the neighborhood was the center of your life, your lifestyle. That's where you lived, that's where you shopped. Many people worked in the area. So it's just going to be a grocery store, a small family-run grocery store.
So aren't there currently small family-run grocery stores at 12th and Forest and then 22nd and Forest also?
Ethnic grocery stores.
Okay. Okay.
And do you know if your client or the purchaser would agree with the conditions recommended by staff? And staff's willing to strike the condition on loitering.
You know, in the neighborhood meeting, the proposed buyer actually spoke to every single one of those conditions and agreed and said, yeah, you know, we're not going to sell alcohol. And one of the neighborhood residents said, well, what about marijuana? That's going to be legalized. And this fellow's a Muslim, and he's kind of opposed, philosophically opposed to that, and he's just not going to do it. He said he would not have any gambling on the property. He had proposed 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., but I'm sure he'd be comfortable with 8. He said, you know, the hours are flexible. I can live with whatever needs to be. Littering, now, he said that he goes out every day at his current place, and he picks up as much of the trash every morning as he can. And the next morning, there's a whole bunch more there, and he goes out with a garbage bag and picks it up. He has asked the landlord to be a little better with the upkeep of the property in that sense, and the landlord's not doing it. Off-street parking, yeah. and landscaping, and he even talked about putting in some trees and shrubs according to what the city would approve.
I have a question. You said the the buyer, potential buyer, is a Muslim?
Uh-huh.
So why is the name Cambodian Buddhist Society chosen as a name?
The Cambodian Buddhist Society is the present owner.
Oh, okay.
Any further questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you very much.
On this, where it says name and address,
Yep.
do I put 4 Cambodian Buddhist Society, 1301 19th Street?
No, you can just put your own name and your own address.
Okay.
Next, we will be asking any members of the public who are in support of this item. You may come forward and we'd have 5 minutes to speak. Anyone in support of this item? I'll get to the opposition first. I just need to look for support first. Okay. Seeing no one here to speak in support, anyone who would like to speak in opposition, you may come forward now. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Oh, my name is Jean Minahan, and I currently live at 943 29th Street, but I lived in the King Irving neighborhood for 50 years before moving to my current address, and my heart is still there. I want to speak against this proposal. The King Irving Neighborhood Association has done some preliminary investigation, and we are not satisfied that this building would be an asset to our neighborhood. We have been a long time building up and trying to make our neighborhood a lot better, and based on what we know about the person who wants to start this neighborhood, this grocery store, this would not be a positive influence to our neighbors. And that's the primary reason that our neighborhood association is against it. You should have a letter that the neighborhood association sent, and also a personal letter that I sent. So I don't think I need to reiterate what's in those, and a couple of the other people probably have more information on the ground. But I just wanted to, as the current vice president of the King Irving Neighborhood Association, I wanted to express our desire not to have this in our neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. Just to let you know, the commission sees these letters here tonight. We don't get them in advance. The staff does. So if you'd like, you've got a few minutes if you just want to hit the points that you wanted to speak about, because we haven't had the chance to read. The commissioners have not had the chance to read every word that's been presented tonight. So you still have about 4 minutes left.
Okay. Well, the King Irving Neighborhood Association supports keeping the current zoning in order to maintain the character of the immediate area and protect large parts of the adjoining blocks, which are zoned in SK and comprises almost exclusively of single-family homes. Habitat for Humanity is interested in building single-family homes on this and row houses on this site, and they would not require rezoning. The person wanting to open this store share plans to have the store open very late on the weekends. His current store is open past 11 p.m. and maybe later on the weekends. When a member of King Irving drove to the current store, operated by the man who wants to operate this store, loitering was apparent, drug deal was witnessed. The Des Moines Public Police Department has reported that there was a shooting at or near the currently operated store in the past few weeks, as well as payments in cash for payouts from electronic gaming machines at the store, which is not allowed. King Irving is not in need of a grocery store at this location. Lutheran Social Services will be having a farmer's market across the street at the health center, health department. It's doubtful that a grocery store would be viable in this location, meaning that there Not only would be tobacco, but electronic gaming machines would likely be installed as they have been in his other store. Anytime a permit to sell beer and alcohol could be sought from the city, we are concerned that the mix of sobering center and behavioral health, mental health, urgent care center that is planned for across the street will not be healthy for those patients with addictions and mental health issues as they leave the clinic and sobering center. With the kind of activity that takes place at the store currently operated by the man who wants to operate this one, we could see much loitering, illegal activity, and enticements for patients being released from the sobering center, none of which is healthy for the patients or residents. We believe it's unsafe or it could be unsafe for King Elementary students walking to and from school, as well as other residents.
Okay.
And that's primarily the reasons that we have for opposing this change in zoning.
Thank you very much.
What's the address of the grocery store you keep referencing but not naming?
The one that he has is at, what's the address here?
Was it 3008 East 9th Street?
Yeah, it's on, I think one of the other people from our neighborhood association knows the exact address. So I would like, they can give it to you when.
Okay, thank you. If you would please sign into that piece of paper that's right there on the table next to you.
Yes.
Yeah, just write your name and address there so we can have it for our records. Thank you very much. If there's someone else who would like to speak in opposition, you may come forward now. It's 5 minutes. You can.
Good evening, Sarah Bass. I'm the Deputy County Administrator for Polk County, here on behalf of the Board of Supervisors and Supervisor Connolly, who shared a letter with you today. Just wanted to give you some background on our plans for the property at 1900 and 1914 Carpenter Avenue, as a kind of a background on our opposition to this rezoning. That facility, the west side of the 1900 Carpenter building, as noted, will be a healthcare medical facility that offers urgent mental health care as well as sobering services. We have pretty extensive plans in place for security in the building as well as transportation upon discharge of those individuals, but are concerned if there were ever to be liquor sales at that property, that would be kind of in opposition to the intended use of that property. The east side of that building, 1914 Carpenter, we are in the process of creating what we're calling a welcome center, so a resource hub for immigrant and refugee families where they can access basic needs, social services. We're really envisioning a really vibrant hub of activity there. Lots of new greenery planted on that block, lots of art on the exterior of that building, as well as just kind of a general uplift of that whole block. So as they noted, also allowing the use of LSI, of the health department parking lot, for every Saturday farmers market during the summer. So we're really doing a lot to invest in that block and make it kind of a vibrant hub of services and activities, both for people who need mental health and substance abuse services, but also for families, including children. So our opposition is really just based on some of what we heard about the operations of the proposed operator at their current site. We appreciate the conditions that staff is recommending. We'd love to see a grocery store there or something that supports the neighborhood, but again, limiting it to no alcohol sales, and just really making sure that there's not going to be issues at that site that conflict with what we're doing at 1900 Carpenter. So happy to answer any questions about those plans or
A little bit.
I've got a few questions. So you're saying that the uses of this building, as long as there's no alcohol, you're fine?
I think it depends on what the owner-operator is. I think in general, a grocery store, yes, without liquor sales, without gambling, without the loitering is fine. I think our concern still lies in the fact that this owner is, allegedly has another property that does have those issues. So if those issues are mitigated and, written in stone, and that this is never going to turn into one of those, I think we could be supportive of a grocery store concept. Obviously wanting to support what the neighbors' wishes are for that site as well.
So if this was like, so if Casey's came and said, we're going to put down here what we have at Forest and 32nd, would you have opposition?
Yeah.
Why?
We really want to see that site become a place where families can go to access services. A Casey's store would obviously be selling liquor, tobacco products, things of that nature. So we want to see that be something that fits in with the neighborhood, what their needs are, and that support kind of that location where we're trying to help families access services like substance abuse services, mental health services, and just helping families meet their basic needs.
Right, so when you talk about vibrant community center, I guess I'm thinking of like EKD is a great resource for the community that does a lot with individuals who are unhoused, out of work, all kinds of other issues. Many have substance abuse issues or other types of economic, financial literacy issues there, which is right next to Sea Fresh Grocery, which also I think has alcohol. What's different?
Like I said, I think we'd be supportive of a grocery store concept. Again, just concerned about alcohol sales, gambling, loitering at that site.
Okay. Thank you. Yep, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition?
I'm Joanne Muldoon. I live at 1338 18th Street, which is on the same physical block, just sort of down the alley on 18th Street. I've lived there for 33 years. Our neighborhood has really turned around in the 33 years I've been there. People didn't want to move into the neighborhood. The county was giving away lots back then because they couldn't sell them. They didn't want to take care of them. Now, I door knocked. I'm the one, along with Denise, who got the petitions. I would say 50 to maybe 80% of the households that I knocked on were immigrants, and they're there because they feel welcome and because it's affordable and because they feel safe. They go to King School, their kids walk to school, they walk all around where we live right now, and they want to continue for that, for our neighborhood to feel like a place that's welcoming to young people, immigrant or not, with families or without, who want to make a good life. And it's a great neighborhood. We're in walking distance of downtown, the Y, a library, 2 parks, a school. Who could ask for more, right? We want to keep the current zoning because we think that, like my house is zoned N5. When our neighborhood plan went in, I allowed it to be, or I went along with and supported a more restrictive zoning because I thought that was what was best for the neighborhood, N5. What the city staff recommended, what the neighbors wanted, and what the city council approved. And the zoning on 19th Street, which is kind of a buffer, it's a little bit more permissive, but it serves as a buffer between those of us who have single-family homes and are zoned N5 and those that are more commercial west of there. I talked to the mechanical engineer who looked at that site on behalf of the seller and the would-be store operator. He said that meeting code to operate a grocery store at that site was not financially feasible. The building has an adequate electrical service, plumbing, handicapped accessibility, and parking. He was not called back to do a site plan. When I asked the folks who were at the public meeting, can I have the names of the people that want to buy and operate the store? They didn't know who they were. Mr. Dalapama couldn't give me the names. And when I asked the realtor who's representing the folks, trying to sell it, she would not give me the names because they did not want us to know who they were. And I've driven by that store about 9 times in the last week, including 3 times on Friday night. I saw people loitering there all the time. I saw a person come out of the store at 11 o'clock at night who had been there at 9 and complete some kind of transaction with someone who parked in front of the store, and there was a handoff. I didn't try and buy anything myself. I don't know what it was, but it looked very suspicious. If you go in the store, there are no groceries. There are electronic gaming machines. There are a little rack of clothing here and maybe a few canned goods, it's not a grocery store. It's not even a convenience store. It's a gambling store. And I understand that there have been other, that guy had another site apparently where he had the same problem and was shut down.
You have 1 more minute.
I have 1 more minute, okay. So when I've talked with the Des Moines Police Department, and the site that's currently operated is a problem site. They've had drug paraphernalia, they had a shooting, and they had misuse of the gambling equipment that was there in terms of what was being paid out, cash instead of the vouchers. So I don't think, given what the engineer has said, given that there have been 3 failed grocery stores right across the street in what is now the Polk County Health Department, that there will ever be a grocery store there, and it will not be viable unless there's gambling, tobacco, alcohol, and whatever else might go on among those that are loitering. And, you know, we don't want enticements for the people that have addiction problems, that have mental health problems, that are getting out, you know, after having care and then finding enticements to make whatever issues they have worse across the street.
Okay. Thank you. Your
Okay.
5 minutes
Thank
is
you.
up. Thank you so
I have
much.
more to say, but
There is some, oh yeah, if you would sign into the sheet. Thank you so much.
Is there any way to clarify?
Yes, Todd? Really quick, yeah, as long as it,
You use your microphone.
turn on your mic. Thank you, Todd.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
sure.
I'm confused. You said you can't figure out who's buying the property,
Yeah, they won't tell us who they are.
but you're telling us they own a property.
At the public meeting, I did ask the address of their current store, and he gave it to me, but I did not get their names.
And staff has tried to get that same information this week, and we haven't been able to either.
So can we use that as relevant information in this decision?
I mean, I would defer to legal. Staff was really basing our decision, our recommendation, just on the fact that that property is really small and really close to housing right there, and that it wouldn't take much to become a nuisance for those houses if the business does go sideways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, like you said, staff really can't base our recommendation on hearsay of them operating another business at another location, but at the same hand, we can in good conscience make it easy for a similar business to go in at this location.
Bert, can I have a quick follow-up? Just like with Polk County and their reservations, do the conditions that are being placed in this rezoning should basically take care of most of your concerns? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have another microphone that might work better? Thank you so much, Tyler.
Oh, I have a pretty strong
Okay,
voice.
I'm not sure if we'll be able to hear you very well, but you could try it.
Yeah, if we can hear you, that's fine.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Donna Ruth Berry. I live at 1339 19th Street and own 1333 19th Street, both of which the back end is on the alley that is involved in the prospective change of zoning. Each lot is it's 50 feet across, 132 and a half feet long. The alley is 10 foot across. I have lived there for 47 years. When I moved in, that building was Barbara's Bake Shop. Bake Shop, not bake, but B-A-K-E. And across the street where public health is, there has been 3 grocery stores. 2 were major chains, and one was kind of the first kind of Aldi's, where your shelves were made out of 2x4s. They all failed. And among them, within 5 or 6 properties, we have grocery stores at 801 University, 1251 University, 1621 University, 1217 Forest, 2009 Forest, and 2009 Forest. So we do not lack grocery stores. And LSI, with your guys' blessing, is going to have a Saturday's Farmer Market across the street on 19th Street for the next 5 years. And DART's on-demand, door-by-door service created a dog leg so that you could get to Hy-Vee at Martin Luther King. I always call it Harding Hills, but at the bottom of Martin Luther King before you get to Douglas. So if you can get picked up at your door and dropped at a Hy-Vee's door, why would you do your grocery shopping any other way? Now, am I correct in that you do or do not have my opposition paper that goes on for 1 1/3 pages?
It's on the screen right now.
Okay. Now, I've got copies if you guys want to look at them, versus my Legion doesn't let me read it. I don't know if anybody else has that problem. Okay, here we go. Now, as far as often in legal papers, it is said the best predictor of the future is the past, which is why we are talking about what the person who was introduced to us at the public meeting was going to be the operator of the grocery store. It's on East 9th. If you go up north on East 9th and cross Hull, there's a little collection of rundown buildings. That's where his present grocery store is at. And my housemate Steve described it as a building that was full of things that fell off the truck. Now, he wasn't talking about thievery so much as it was salvage, where they sell, different companies buy up broken containers and sell them out to merchants. So anyway, number one, I think we're being lied to. And that lie is once this rezoning happens, they don't have to have a grocery store. They can have any kind of business that is a small commercial business, and they don't have to come back to you guys. And they told us at the open meeting, and there was 136 years of the 4 people who attended that meeting, all of which are here today. Together, we have lived on that block for 136 years. Anyway, at that time, they talked about the owner of the grocery store, but in the letter summarizing the meeting, it's become plural now. They never said one word about vaping, and no one who wants their children to grow up healthy wants a place that's convenient to get vaping products. Okay, now if you look at your picture on the back of the notice, and they show the intersection, all the words that are the 19th and the Carpenter and the Keogh, that's what that intersection is like. Now what this doesn't show is there's raised concrete borders or barriers here and there. So you do not have open access on that intersection. All right, no vehicle can enter Keogh to go east to downtown if they start out in front of the Cambodian temple. No one going east on Carpenter can continue east on Carpenter after crossing 19th Street. Only with luck and great care can a vehicle cross the intersection to go west on Carpenter. Now, why our traffic department wouldn't think this was a problem, I don't know. Now, the alley. Got lots of story about that alley.
The 5 minutes is up.
I'm done?
Yeah.
Aw,
5 minutes
good
is up.
story.
But thank you so much for giving the letters so that we can read them all the way through.
No, but the stories about the alley aren't in the letter.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Yes, you may come forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Denise Anderson.
Sorry,
I
would you
live
move the mic more towards the back? Thank you so much.
My name is Denise Anderson. I live at 1321 19th Street. I live north of the building. I'm concerned about the kids going to and from school. I'm concerned about the trash and stuff like that because I've been there since '89. And I have asked the Cambodians, like when I'm in my yard working, I have a beautiful yard and have a beautiful home. I've done a lot to my home. And when they're there, I've even talked to them about when they cut their grass to pick up the paper that they see on the parking and the sidewalk. That wasn't done. I have asked them to move the pile of sticks from the storm that we had in 2020. They're still there. Like I said, I just don't think it'd be a good place. I went by the other store that he owns. I was afraid to go in because of the loitering that was on the outside, so I didn't get to see the inside of it. And like I said, I'm just concerned about the school kids. I worked for Des Moines Public Schools for 33 years, and I am concerned about the kids going to and from and the loitering that would be there. Thank you.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Do you feel that you have a need for the grocery store in this area?
No. There's a grocery store, like I said, on Forest, like the lady said, there's a grocery store up on Forest Avenue. There's 2 on Forest Avenue. So there's quite a few stores in the neighborhood, small stores. And I'm not going to feel safe in my home.
Thank you.
Number one, I will not feel safe in my home. When we had the meeting, the first meeting, he said he wanted to be open until 11 o'clock. I have grandkids that come to my home. I have great-grandkids that come to my home, and I am concerned. And if they do get it, I will have to put a privacy fence. I already have one up. I will have to put it to the front of my home, and I don't want to have to do that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Okay, you may come forward, say your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. You may go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andres Rodriguez. I am at 1812 Forest Ave, the east or northwest corner of this block. I use that alley every day. I want to just add my 2 cents. I use that alley every day. The intersection that I am on is a mess. I've witnessed countless accidents. The southern corner of that block, where the Keogh and Carpenter, is another mess. I use it early morning. That's the only time it's really accessible and useful. So the whole traffic issue is one of my concerns. And the children, because I'm in front of the school, kids, parents, busy alley, it's going to be a mess. And I've only been living there for 2 years, and I don't see a need, I don't see a use or any benefits really for this, so I just want to add that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you sign in on that paper, please? Thank you. Hello.
My name is Sandra Jameson. I live at 1806 next. All right, his house is here, the alley is here, there's a vacant lot here, and then I live there.
I'm sorry, that was 1806. What was the street name?
1806 Forest.
Okay, thank you.
And as I said, Andreas lives here, the alley is here, there's a vacant lot here, and then my house is here. And my concern is, there are people that use that alley because I'm not sure if they have parking in front of their house off 19th, but they have to use that alley to get in and out, or they have parking in the back of their house. But during school hours in the morning, it's almost impossible to get through Forest because of the school parking. And people trying to get in and out to use that as an access road to a grocery store, I don't feel it's a good idea. I don't think it would be safe, and depending on when they were shopping or whatever, it would be dangerous for the kids. Sorry to say that parents of King's School park in the vacant lot by my house or in the alley or in my driveway, but we won't discuss that part. And I just think they need to do something about trafficking in that alley if they're going to use it as a entrance or an exit for this store. I am against the store. I don't think we need it. I've lived in my house for 18 years, and as I said, there's plenty of little stores or grocery stores. Most people, when they want a grocery shop, they go to Hy-Vee. They go to Hy-Vee Drug Town, and for the best meat, they go to Fairway. And I just don't think there's a need. Plus, how can they move a grocery store into a building that's, in my opinion, decrepitated? It's falling apart. It's disgusting. I mean, myself and my niece, we walk this neighborhood. I'm a little overweight, so I have to. But we do it for exercise. We walk all the way down 4th to 16th. We walk to that little street, I'm not sure which one it is, and we walk all the way up, and then we walk up Carpenter, and then down 19th back to our house. That building looks like it's falling apart. And how can you, I guess my question is, will they do something to improve the building before allowing a grocery store to move in there? Or are they just going to say, yeah, you can do it, throw the stuff in there?
If this were to be approved and go through, they would need to come back to staff with a site plan, and everything would need to be up to code as well.
Up to city code?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm still against it. Thank you.
If you could sign into the sheet, thank you so much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition on this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jason Zilk. I live at the corner of 19th and College, about 2 blocks away from this proposed zoning change. At the beginning of this, we heard a nice story about how grocery stores can bring neighbors together, and we could meet at this place, and all these people would help build neighborhood and community. I find it kind of interesting that that story was relayed from someone who doesn't live within our city. But you've had an opportunity to hear from several people who do live in our neighborhood and have been brought together from this potential grocery store to let you know that there is neighborhood here and they do care about what goes in here. I do think it's also interesting, or I would like to see the owners, if they're actually interested in conducting business here, if it's such a great idea, I think they would have brought that to the neighbors. I know there was that little bit of area that they spoke to, but to the larger neighborhood who's going to be affected by that, I think this is a really good idea. They would bring that to the neighbors so that we could get behind it, and this could be a different type of opportunity before the zoning commission where you'd actually have the neighbors in support of such a opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Yes.
question?
We have a list of 7 zoning conditions that the city has proposed. I don't know if you've read those.
I heard, I was here for the beginning portion of the meeting, and I heard all that.
I guess my question is, how comfortable are you that the city of Des Moines would be able to enforce those?
I don't believe that they would, honestly. Another thing too is I was looking at this idea of the store, and if you have a store front, things happen in front of a store, but if all the business is coming in through the back in the alley behind the store, it's another different type of thing. So if you're driving past, you may not see what's actually happening back in the backyard, basically.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for me?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition to this item?
Could you put the map with the picture? Yeah, okay. I live where 1339 19th Street, about where the 13 is, we're at the top. Yeah, the top, no, right there. And I think traffic safety should be the major concern.
What was your name? Sorry.
Pardon?
I didn't catch your name.
Stephen Woods.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, traffic safety should be the thing. There's crashes at Forest and there's crashes at University, but the area there where these come together, this has become a speed zone. This is where people build up their speed to try to beat the next light. So that's a blind corner where the temple is, and there's no crosswalk there. So you're going to have to put in a crosswalk, slow things down, and also the alley has lots of ruts in it, so you'll probably have to pave that before it's safe to use. So that's my major concern. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would sign into that piece of paper.
Mr. Woods, can you sign in, please?
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Is there anyone who is neutral to this item? Yes, you may come forward. Say your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Courtney Ackerson. I live at 979 26th Street, and I'm a part of the Drake Neighborhood Association. I'm just speaking as a neighbor right now, but I'm engaged in the neighborhood. And I just wanted to share information to consider in your decision. On 22nd and University, there's some construction that will go in as we build up Dogtown in the Drake neighborhood, and Halal Grocery will actually move from the 25th Street, kind of away from University, closer to the University storefront on that block. And so I also think if there is a need for a grocery store, we have a well-established grocery store who's built a relationship with the neighborhood. When you talk about families accessing that area and being able to access grocery, that'll be a really great addition towards the end of Dogtown. So I just wanted to share that general information.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who is neutral who would like to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, the applicant now has time for rebuttal, 5 minutes.
I want to thank everybody who was here, who expressed their opinions. And we heard a lot of opinions. We heard a lot of speculation. Well, what if in the future they decide to sell alcohol? What if this store fails and the zoning has changed? Who knows what's going to go in there? What if the traffic increases? What if? I haven't seen any data that any of those things, they're possibilities, and we have to acknowledge that those are possibilities. I haven't heard very much in the way of facts. I haven't seen any evidence. They pointed to, I would like to correct one statement that was made, that we refused to give the names of the prospective owners. One of the parties who's here tonight called me on the phone, and I didn't have the paper in front of me, but I said, if you will look on the sign-in sheet at the neighborhood meeting, and I didn't remember his name, I said, I think it's something like Suwami or Suwali or something. And if you look, he signed in, and there's his name and his address and his phone number. I don't know what the ethical rules are for realtors, whether they can give out the names and addresses of prospective buyers. I suspect that would be an offense to their professional code of conduct. The alley seems to be a big issue. Now, traffic said that the people who buy it would have to improve the alley up to the end of the parking lot, not the whole alley. And that alley is terrible. I got to say, it is horrible. The Monk's residence is on 18th Street, and I don't know the exact address, but it's like 3 or 4 houses south of Forest. And that alley is a mess. I mean, there are huge potholes in there. I'm not too sure that the whole alley would be the responsibility of the new owners of that property.
It would have to be paved to the parking lot.
To the parking lot is what the city people at the pre-app meeting said. And that's reasonable. We were told that a curb would have to be put along Carpenter Street, and that's reasonable. There are some improvements that need to be made to the building. Somebody said a structural engineer was there. We have no knowledge of that. We didn't let him into the building, and the building's locked unless there's something going on. So I'm not too sure how a structural engineer would get the information about the condition of the building if they didn't go inside. So I'm hearing a lot of, again, speculation and some statements that are just spurious. Well, this could happen and this could happen, and those are all true. And I am sympathetic with their concerns about the condition of the neighborhood. And sure, it's possible that the store could fail. It's possible that the new owner could not be telling the truth when he says he would have security and he would go out every morning and detail the area, and that he would have trash receptacles, and that he won't be selling liquor or gambling. I believed him, but apparently they do not. So I'd really like you all to consider the benefits as well as the possible detriments to the neighborhood. The economic benefits, and again, this loitering thing, and they're talking about the county putting in newer facilities across the street, people coming out and loitering. If there are people at the grocery store, and if there are customers going in and out, there's less likely just to be loitering by these people. The concern was, well, they'll go over there and about alcohol. They just came, but alcohol's off the table. So I understand their fears. I understand their concerns. But I just don't see any evidence to support their concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? When the person that you're referencing signed in, what address did they use?
His home address. I can go get the sheet and tell you. If you look on the, yeah, right there, that one there, that one. It is Simawi Kiwa, 1005 28th Street, his phone number and his email address.
But the owner did not want to come to the meeting tonight? The prospective buyer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the prospective buyer, he had an obligation and he couldn't come. The realtor called me 30 minutes before I left the house to come here, and she said, things have come up and I just can't make it. So, life's not perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions? All right.
Can commissioners make any comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Justin, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think there is enough community concern that the owner needs to be in the house. I understand life happens, but I need to hear from the owner. I think the community needs to hear from the owner. I have some questions. Now, I know Des Moines has plenty of food deserts and we do need grocery stores. But if he is running a business that has a certain type of behavior that's consistently going on and he's not changing behavior, then that's a problem. The loitering doesn't bother me because on just some equity-based stuff, that doesn't bother me. But if he's operating a business in a way that produces a certain type of behavior, that's the issue. So I would like to hear from the owner. And until then, I think we need to push this off until our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. I hadn't closed the public hearing yet, but we'll take
My
that as
apologies.
the first comment. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll close the public hearing now and open it up to the commission.
I have a question for staff. In the condition number 1, where we talk about alcohol, beer sales, and controlled substances, does that include tobacco as well?
No, staff was just being preemptive, it's possible someday marijuana sales might be legal here in Iowa, so we're just being preemptive since these zoning conditions run with the land, and so.
Could it include tobacco if the
I believe,
commission?
yeah, it could. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes. I guess it sounds, I think I agree very aggressively that we don't have a lot of facts on who any of these individuals are, right? I mean, it sounds like we're talking about, a grocery store with a noted location that the assessor's office seems to indicate is owned by Clayton Enterprises of Waukee, although that business doesn't exist in the state of Iowa. So I guess I agree with you. It's unclear who actually owns this. And as someone who lives next to a absentee landlord, I guess I have sympathy for unresponsive landlords, number one. So I'm not entirely sure that we can actually pin if they are in that building with someone who doesn't actually live there. That piece I'm sensitive, flexible to, right? I'm very concerned. I'm not entirely sure, and I think I'm echoing something that Francis has said in past meetings, that I'm not entirely sure it's our role to determine whether a business, which I'm also aggressively opposed to, implementing restrictions on it at this stage. It's not our role to determine whether a business is set to, succeed or fail, right? I mean, I could see economic development being interested in that. I could see VentureNet panel being interested in that. Fine. But we're not here to pick winners and losers of business. And I'm fundamentally opposed to that function of what we're doing here. So that makes no sense, right? We see plenty of proposals from plenty of developers putting up overpriced houses and apartments that are not going to go for that price, and we do not even get the chance to argue whether or not those are going to succeed. Tying into that is, we even did a Carpenter Urban Renewal Plan that told us that that plan is specifically designed to facilitate this kind of development. So we're actually going off to the state and saying, hey, we want TIF dollars to invest in this type of business, and now that type of business comes up and says, oh, no, we can't do that, right? And it feels a little like we're doing that on the grounds that, we're putting a lot of requirements on a property at the wrong stage in the process based on what, if you're going to be cynical, feels a little bit like an unnamed Muslim's doing things we don't really know what they're going to do and they buy it. And that just seems, morally problematic as well, in addition to it's outside the scope of what we're doing. We're talking about germane. I don't even think these proposals are germane to what we're supposed to be doing, which is why I'd be aggressively opposed to 3, 4, 6, and 7. And now if we're even saying that number 1 is trying to include substances we don't even know are going to be legal someday in the state, that seems ridiculous. Like, this just seems like the wrong place to implement the wrong thing based off conjecture, and the only things that aren't conjecture, if we can even identify we've even arrived at the right place, aren't necessarily on the actual person versus their landowner. So that seems like a whole lot of challenges here that I just don't think these recommendations are appropriate.
And I agree with you on a lot of what you said, Chris. I was just saying our recommendation is based on just the size of the lot, the location of the lot, the close proximity of those houses to the east, the limited availability of on-street parking right there. We can't speculate if, yes, this bad operator at this other location, they're going to move here. We can't, because you're right, they could, even if they do, they could go out of business next week and another person could move in. So our conditions are really just geared at making sure that whatever goes in there doesn't become a problem for those houses that are really close.
But I don't think that the halal store on 25th, which I think is the same size or smaller, has been successfully operating in our community for over 25 years. This is, we shop there regularly. I can't say that all of a sudden, now this place over here, which is supposed to be, across the street from a vibrant community center, supposedly, that is actually our only other reference point for that is EKD, which is next door to a vibrant community-based business and a grocery store, a lot larger. None of this seems logical, and the restrictions don't seem that we've had enough evidence to indicate that the tenuous links that we're trying to do are fair, or I would even argue even legal. That just seems really challenging.
Well, my opinion is there are too many unanswered questions here. I think the neighbors who actually live in the neighborhood are strongly opposed to this. A proposed buyer is not present. I think someone coming up requesting a zoning change should affirmatively present their case. It's not presented here, and I would vote in denying the change, the zoning on this, and make that motion.
Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment.
Sorry, just in 1 second.
I have a procedural question. Could we have the neighbors' comments up on the screen, please?
Which one for the lot? There were many pages.
Sorry?
There were many pages. Which one were you referring to?
The one that had the colored, the reds and the other colors.
Oh, the consent map?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is, given the number of people that are opposed, is this vote going to require a supermajority of the commission?
Yes, since more than 20% of the property owners have registered in opposition, it will trigger a supermajority vote at council to pass, meaning 6 of the 7 council members would have to vote affirmatively for the zoning to pass. And the 6/7 vote would also be required if the commission would say recommend denial. If the commission recommends denial of a rezoning, then that also would trigger a supermajority vote by council.
In these percentages,
Thank
is
you
Polk
very much.
County
Well,
one
sorry,
or three?
Justin, let me follow up. I just want to reaffirm my support for Francis's motion as very appropriate in this instance.
Thank you. Chris, did you have a
Is
comment?
Polk County 1 vote or 3 in the percentages here?
The percentage is based on the area of land that they own. So like, since they're the biggest landowner, they by far account for the most of the 62.41% that has what was that? Yeah, okay, yeah, Tyler says they represent 35% of that 62%. But even if you took Polk County out, there would still be 27% opposition, which would also still trigger a supermajority vote.
Okay, thank you. Justin, did you have something to say?
Yeah, so I think it's more of a point of information. What is the procedure to trigger the delay of a denial vote and enforce, like, essentially have the owner come in, or then move it to denial? Because
You're asking for a continuance?
Yeah, because whoever's proceeding on tap is continuing to say that it's a grocery store if we're denying alcohol sales, tobacco sales, and gambling. That indeed sounds like a grocery store, so I feel like, I think the community deserves answers. That's what I'm saying. I want the owner here to tell me what is going in there.
Okay.
Then,
Well,
then the community doesn't have to necessarily, oh, so good.
I was just going to say, Francis has made a motion, so we need to vote on that first. And if that does not pass, then we would be open to a motion for continuance at that point. Am I correct on that? Okay.
Just a point of clarification before the vote. We can vote to, did you say this, Bert? We could vote to reject the request, but they could still take it to council, and they will still need a supermajority?
Right. If the commission would tonight vote to recommend denial to council, then that triggers a supermajority vote. But the reality is excuse me, the opposition already triggers this, but it would, I guess, double, right? Yeah. Belt and suspenders, I guess.
Double super? Okay. Any more discussion before we move on to the motion? Okay, the motion is to deny. All those in favor for the motion to deny, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Justin, how do you vote? The motion is to deny.
I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain?
Pass.
Pass. Okay. So,
Motion carries 8 to 2 to 1.
okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6, a request from the Iowa State Bar Association for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, Collins Community Credit Union ITM facility for property located in the vicinity of 601 East Court Avenue for the following Type 2 design alternatives to allow the construction of a drive-through facility in a DX2 zoning district, and to allow a drive-through facility to be located 2.6 and 2.3 feet from the northern and southern property lines, when all accessory structures are required to have a 5-foot side yard setback, to allow a drive-through facility to be visible from a primary street and exist unscreened by a building when this is not permitted, and to waive the requirement to install a public sidewalk for the full extent of the site frontage. And Nick Tarpey from staff is here to present.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Nick Tarpey, planning staff. So just to try to break down the design alternatives that are in front of us tonight, the first three really involve the siting of the new drive-through facility. Part D really has to do with the sidewalk, so I'll try to break those down. And then just some background, too, that I want to give the Commission. Back in November of 2022, there was an amendment that was proposed to Chapter 135 of City Code that allowed the placement of accessory structures in any district with the Type 2 design alternative. So previously, there were certain accessory structures that were limited in certain zoning districts. So if people wanted to construct or place an accessory structure in specific zoning districts, they would have had to rezone properties to do that. The code change allowed that to happen with a Type 2 design alternative as opposed to a rezoning, changing the entire zoning designation of the property. This site plan that we're looking at tonight that's here before you is really like the quote-unquote test case or the first one of those that has come through that process. So just a little background for that. And then also, too, you might have noted it in your staff report, but this is part one of a two-phase development. So we're not going to necessarily focus on phase 2 tonight, but it's there for context, and I can try to answer some preliminary questions on it, but just FYI, the design alternatives that we're looking at right now pertain to this phase 1. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So here's an aerial of the site showing the context. This site's situated in the eastern fringes of the East Village neighborhood, so it's at the corner, generally at the corner of East Court and East 6th Street. This is the existing building. Again, as part of this initial phase 1, this existing building will not be touched. The site development area, and you might have noticed it in your map, is really focused on this parcel and specifically the eastern edge of this parcel here facing East 7th Street. So we can come back to this, but just wanted to clarify that. Here's some photos of the existing site. These were taken this week on Monday. The glare's bad here, but this is on East 7th Street, looking west towards downtown. You can see that the existing width of the lot is about 50 feet. Here's the existing building that's in a tough shadow back here, and then this parcel here is owned by the Bar Association. And then you have the rail spur here to the south. It's another view of the site, just from the north, a little bit less of a glare. And this is taken internal to the site, looking towards the east. So really, this area here is really the area of site development that we're talking about. Just another view from the sidewalk, looking south towards the tracks. So here's a layout plan. Generally shows you, again, in this phase 1, how this would be laid out and constructed. This area here, if you're following my cursor, this is the proposed location of the facility. It's a canopy-type facility, and I'll let the applicant describe it in a little bit more detail, but from my understanding, is an ITM is kind of like an ATM, but it's a little bit more interactive. So it's like you're pulling up to the ATM, and you got somebody on FaceTime, so there's a teller there to really be a little bit more interactive, as opposed to just pushing buttons on a computer. But that's really what this would be for. So it would be a drive-up banking facility to do virtual interactions. So just some more different views of the site here. We can come back to these if you want. Here's some elevations of the proposed structure. It'd have a mix of stone and some metallic cladding on it, metal roof as well. Here's a site plan of the larger site. So this would be like the phase 2. The applicant has noted this phase 1 here in the lower right-hand corner. This is the new building that would be proposed. And then here's just some renderings that would show what that would look like at the corner there. So digging into the staff report here, some things that I wanted to point out, and I already talked about the context a little bit. So staff, we had a few things to consider. Like I said, this was really the first one of these that had popped up, so we wanted to try to wrestle with it a little bit. And really there was some key criteria that we looked at when we evaluated this request here. Number one, there's a drive-through facility that already exists at the site. It's there, it's at the corner within the existing building. Really what this proposal would do is it would shift those activities to the quote-unquote back or the eastern end of the site on East 7th Street. Right now it's really situated at the corner of East Court and East 6th. And then, like I talked about a little bit earlier, the site. It sits in what we would call an edge condition informally. So East 7th Street is not necessarily a map street when we talk about primary frontages or primary streets. It's not really developed in an urban cross-section, and the area is really full of an eclectic mix of users. So it's got some legacy industrial users, there's some vacant lots, there's rail right-of-way, office users, parking lots, things like that. Also, this developable area that the applicant is proposing to develop here is 50 feet wide. There's a rail spur directly adjacent to it. And then, again, thinking about that phase 2, thinking about that, trying to visualize that, a new building plus the existing building would fully screen this from East Court Avenue at full build-out. So given all of that contextual information as staff, we have decided to support the design alternative requests in part A through B that I talked about at the initial start of the presentation here, subject to some conditions that I'll talk about here in a second. And then related to the sidewalk element, as staff, as part of our sidewalk analysis policy, whenever you install a sidewalk, you got to install it through the entirety of the frontage. The applicant has raised some concerns that there would be some maybe conflicts when eventually a sidewalk crossing over a railroad would be installed. As planning staff, we consulted with traffic staff, and there's not really an issue with that. And then also just something that I want to point out too, if there was ever to be a sidewalk constructed over the existing rail spur, that would be the responsibility of the city. That would not be the applicant that would be undertaking that. So for that reason, we don't support that design alternative request to partially waive the sidewalk construction out front there. So digging into the staff recommendation, this is where I get to those conditions, and you might remember in your report, but I'll go through them again. So regarding the siting of the ITM facility, as staff, we do support the design alternative requests for the placement for the setbacks within the property. However, the key condition or the crux of the recommendation really falls on that phase 2 site plan that we glanced at earlier. As staff, we're requesting that phase 2 of the development, which will come before the commission in a couple months, be fully reviewed and approved before any building permits are issued for the construction of this drive-through facility. And then also, in consulting with our building code staff, there were some concerns regarding the separation of this proposed drive-through facility from property lines. Really, it's a matter of a couple of feet. It's nothing that would really dramatically alter or change what's proposed, but really just we're okay with the setbacks that are proposed as long as they would meet the standards of the International Building Code. And then, like I said before, staff is recommending denial of the waiver to not extend the sidewalk for the full length of the frontage for the reasons that I described earlier. But that's the basis of my recommendation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Question, is the sidewalk in question the 50 feet along 7th?
Yeah, it's not even a full 50 feet. I don't know the exact dimension. They're proposing to partially install it. I can go back and show you. You can kind of see it on this one even. So they proposed it a little bit, would cross the drive aisle, but then it stubs here. So as staff, just take it all the way down.
Johnny, did you have a question?
Yeah, that was my question as well, because the staff report said the south, so I thought it was along the leftover railing or whatever it's there right now, so that answers my question. Thanks.
Commissioners have any other questions for staff?
Do you have, I'm sorry, just
go ahead.
Do you have a better illustration of what this ITM drive-through will look like? I love the sexy picture of the finished building, but do you have anything that shows that, like that?
We have, so we have these elevations here, and I know it doesn't really give you like a, here, we can grab this, and here's what this would feel like, sort of thing. But it does give you some materiality, ideas of materiality and how it would look, these images here.
Okay, so I just want to be clear, the back of it will be facing the Bar Association
Correct.
building, correct?
That parking lot.
So the open part will be facing the tracks.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes, good question.
What is the direction of the traffic through?
Yeah, good question. So I'll go back to the circulation here. So generally, the idea would be that as a vehicle, you would come in through, as of right now, both of these curb cuts, and then you would flow to the site from west to east, and then you would flow out onto East 7th.
So wait, so you're not getting rid of any curb cuts and you're adding one?
So Again, so as part of, this is a phase one of this site plan. So the site area is generally this area, this parcel here. And so, yes, as part of phase one, no curb cuts would be eliminated. They would add one on East 7th here, but as something we would evaluate as part of phase two of the site plan, we would evaluate the existing curb cuts as part of that.
Is there a reason, since they, as part of your conditions, they can't, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but they won't be issued the building permit to do it until the rest of it has been passed,
Yeah.
phase two? Is there a reason why it just ups the timeline for it? I don't understand
as
why
staff,
it
we
wouldn't
thought
just
about
be
it, and
included
in placing a drive-through facility downtown, we wanted to see a larger, kind of more comprehensive development before we allowed a standalone drive-through facility, to operate in conjunction with an existing one-story building on a corner lot in East Village in kind of a edge downtown context. And so, as staff, the basis of that recommendation was having more certainty that more robust, larger development would also be coming along with the allowance for a drive-through facility. Does that make sense?
It does, but the reason for doing this one early instead of just doing it all together as with the phase two is a timeline issue? Because
I'll let
it
the
sounds like
applicant-
it's going to be delayed anyway.
I will let the applicant answer that. That was their decision to basically split up their site development.
Okay.
And so the condition, I believe, and Bert can interrupt me, is staff trying to respond and react to that.
Any other questions, Johnny?
Nick, do you happen to know south of the rail spur, is that a private property? Or is that
Yes,
publicly owned?
it is. It's Norfolk Southern. And then, yeah, so you can see the title holder here. So the rail spur, or sorry, Hawkeye Land Co. So it's a private property owner. It's not city or public right away.
So if that property were ever to be developed, they would have to bring up the sidewalk and
Correct.
connect to whatever is being put in now?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commissioners for staff? Okay, thank you. The applicant now has 10 minutes to present. State your name and address, please.
Good evening. You guys are amazing, by the way. My name is Todd O'Rourke. I'm with Collins Community Credit Union, and I know we have a member of the Bar Association who've been working with in the process of buying this lot and expanding this building. First off, I want to just say that we love being part of the community. We have lost a couple of branches with the Price Choppers closing. We're trying to get a better presence in Des Moines. So this project is kind of our lead-in to where we want to go. And the understanding about our goal, because this is one of our busiest branches here, and 80% of our business is drive-through. We want to do the first phase first, and we want to get all of that built because we can't operate while we tear the building down. So the ITM machines are actually interactive teller machines. So during banking hours, anybody can go up and do 99% of anything that you could do when you walk into a bank or into a credit union. So you can pull up to those units, you can talk to somebody. There's people in our call center that come up on screen and you show your driver's license and you go through the whole process. But we want to have time to educate our members how to use those drive-throughs before we tear the building down. We are absolutely 100%, we don't like the curb cut that is there existing in the front. We don't like the building. So we're really, we're all in this to beautify the neighborhood and just try and be part of the village. So does that kind of answer any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
So on the timing thing, what are you envisioning, how this timing is going to work then?
Well, we want to, once it passes here, we want to go ahead and get the first phase submitted for permit. We are in the finalization of the building documents. We primarily already have a tenant for the top floor, but we're trying to finalize all the details of finishes, and we had ideas about changing the interior to ITM units versus standard people tellers, but we've gone back to, we're doing teller stations, traditional. We are a proponent of, if you're going to get in your car, sometimes you do want to see a person, you want to come in, you want to interact. And this neighborhood is definitely Hispanic, and our tellers are Hispanic or speak Spanish, and we're trying to stay as part of the community. So we're in the process of just finalizing all of the floor plans and figuring out how much space we want on the first floor and all of that.
So the goal, though, is to be able to keep doing business, right, while you tear down. That's really the goal, and that's a good goal, I think. I think
the
that's
goal,
great.
like I said, the goal is to do the drive-through lanes now, get those operational, have the staff train members be out there as soon as we can get it built. If hopefully the weather's decent, we'll be out there with the members, showing them how to use them, and then we will get the permit for the building and then transfer those folks over to Mill Civic or what's our other branch? They might have to work out of Clive temporarily. Okay. We've also got a site we're working on Merle Hay. So that we're hoping to get put together as well. But the staff's going to transfer over to another branch while we tear the building down. And then members will still be able to do business with us through the drive-through.
Okay. So you say drive-through a lot, and there's people that walk and bike in that neighborhood, especially in the village. Can you walk or bike up to an ITM?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we currently in Cedar Rapids, we're in the 1800 First Avenue neighborhood, Wellington Heights, and a lot of those people walk into the ITMs, and then we also have a full branch there as well.
Okay. Do you envision perhaps those two curb cuts that are going to now be on 7th? What's going to happen there? They're going to be side by side?
To be honest with you, I thought that the curb cut that we have right now is pretty much in line with what's there right now.
Well, it can't be, right? Because right now...
Are you talking about until phase 2 is, because I don't want to get into...
No, I'm not talking, well, because the curb cut now isn't isn't in the grassy area. It's up because the grassy area isn't developed.
That side. Yeah, that doesn't even exist right now.
There is a curb cut right there. That's our on our property.
Okay.
So they'll drive straight through, or they'll go up to the one that's there?
No, we would like them to be able to drive straight through.
So there'll be two side by side. That'll be there forever and ever, right?
Not forever and ever. We would eventually take the one out so that there would be just the one, and then everybody from the whole parking area would go through that.
But then the people that, the ABA won't be able to get to their building.
Okay. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Chad Sokup, Fruit Development Group, owner's rep for Collins. So the new curb cut would be exclusively for Collins. The existing curb cut that sits there today would just be for exiting out of the Bar Association lot.
So there would be two curb cuts, pretty much side by side.
Pretty much on 7th, yes.
Thank you.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Anything else? I apologize if I'm not speaking properly.
That's fine. Any further questions from commissioners?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Johnny.
So it sounds like you're in agreement with all of the staff recommendations except the sidewalk piece.
And if we need to do the sidewalk, we will put in the sidewalk. We were just hoping, because of the way the layout was going to be, that we didn't think it would be necessary to put that in, but we can, certainly.
And I can see why you don't think that's necessary as well, because of the rail spur that's there.
Right.
However, when I was asking the question earlier, if potential development happens to the south, which if and when, who knows, if that were to happen, they would bring up the sidewalk. Would you be willing to connect at that point?
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant?
Just as an experience, I was there this week, and I was walking past the edge of the sidewalk, and there was a big old hole that I stepped in and could have injured myself. So it would have been great if there was a sidewalk there, just FYI. So,
I will go by and take a look at that.
yeah, okay. It has a white circle around it. I didn't see that, but I stepped right in it and fell.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Are you here to speak now?
I'm the consultant for these guys, Justin Strom, 2727 Southwest Snyder
Okay.
Boulevard. Just wanted to answer a couple of additional questions. On the curb cuts, on 6th Street, there's only one access. In this phase, we're leaving it alone. That's one of our primary accesses to the ITMs. In the master build, we're just shifting it south a little bit to more in line so that the drive-through is straight east-west. On the north side, right now, there's currently 3 accesses, 2 to Collins and 1 to the Bar Association. With this Phase 1 ITM, we actually are taking out one of the drives, the middle one. And then we have a ingress-egress easement we're working through, so we'll utilize the Iowa Bar Association more to help facilitate keeping to use the existing condition until we're able to get to the building part. In the master plan, we're actually getting rid of both Collins ones and moving the Iowa Bar Association one over slightly and combining them to more of a shared access between the two. So ultimately, there'll be one access on Court as opposed to the 3 now. Over on 7th, yes, there is the existing Bar Association. We are working to purchase that 50-foot parcel, and right now, as standalone, that would be a 50-foot parcel with no accesses, and it would be granted the ability to have an access, so it wouldn't be different if somebody standalone came in and developed that. They would have to be given the right to have that access. So it also has just one-way traffic on that access too. So it's not as much of a conflict point as if you had two-way access for both of those drives, and they are able to see visually each other very well on the non-primary streets, so we don't see an issue with traffic from that standpoint. With the sidewalk comments, since we're already coming to planning and zoning, we just threw it on as another ask. We have no problem meeting the city code. The 50-foot parcel kind of bumps in from the right-of-way, or the right-of-way gets wider on that 50-foot parcel, so we're continuing the alignment of that sidewalk. Typically, you see the sidewalk put at the back of the right-of-way. Within that 50 feet, it's really hard to kind of make that maneuver to get it back to the right-of-way. Where it opens up to wider lots a little south, that's when we think somebody would make that realignment. When you get to the rail spur, it's our opinion they would either move it to be back a curb on the street, or they would move it to the back of the right-of-way, which in either case is not the alignment we currently have. And with that rail spur, usually you don't want it to the back of the right-of-way, or you got to keep adding those pavement blocks on the rail spur to get to where you have the sidewalk. The sidewalk and the road has to connect with those pavement blocks. So our assumption is it would come to the street, but maybe it wouldn't. You can see we're actually going north and removing and replacing sidewalk of the Iowa Bar because we need to help make up grades differential to what they've put in. In our opinion, the same person south would do the same thing that they would do that we're doing. So we're just trying to ask to leave it, get it past our driveway, and then give the next person the availability to realign or change the elevation as much as possible. In our opinion, whatever we put in, somebody next is just going to take out and rip out and redo anyways. But like I said, if you guys want to make us put it in, which is city code, we have no problem with that. We'll do that just fine. We just figured we'd ask it and give you why we were asking for it. Also, directly across 7th Street, that entrance drive, they also stopped their sidewalk at their entrance and didn't continue it down to those property lines. So we just thought that was precedence for kind of doing what we did. So we're not proposing to not install any sidewalk. That's just why we kind of stopped it 1 or 2 panels short.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners in regards to that? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in support of this?
Well, I'm Dwight Dinkla. My name's on the applicant. I'm the executive director of the Iowa State Bar Association. and we have the property immediately to the north of where the drive-through will be from west to east. I can tell you from personal experience, that's a much better, that's a big improvement to have the traffic flow from 6th Street to 7th Street, as opposed to what the credit union has now, where they enter on Court Avenue just a few yards east of the intersection of East 6th and Court. Traffic gets really bad. So as a result, what oftentimes the patrons, the clients of the credit union now use, they will either drive on the State Bar Association's driveway, either the one that goes to the Court Avenue on the west side of the Iowa State Bar Association, or they'll travel clear across our parking lot and enter 7th Street. So anyway, the directional flow will be much better. Not every property owner has the good fortune of having good neighbors. I can tell you that the Collins Community Credit Union has been a good neighbor for the Iowa State Bar Association, and we feel pretty fortunate that we have the opportunity that they have selected to be continue to be a neighbor of the Iowa State Bar Association. We did our due diligence, and when we thought about selling the property, this grassy strip of land to Collins Community Credit Union, we traveled up to Cedar Rapids to visit several of their building sites, and we also talked to some of the subtenants of their buildings. They were very pleased with their landlord. The buildings look great. I think it's a big improvement for the community, and obviously we support their application. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in support of this item? Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Okay. Neutral? No? We're good. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing and open it to the commission for discussion.
Well, I think the applicant is willing to comply with the code. I was okay with what they were proposing, so if somebody wants to modify the B, otherwise I'll move staff as is.
Any discussion from commissioners before we vote?
Would a modification be just that we're okay with their application pending a requirement that if there is development to the south, they would extend the sidewalk? Is that what you're meaning? I mean, I'd be in favor of that. Or can we do that?
So it would basically be an approval of Part B, right? To approve their request to waive the sidewalk extension? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, they're saying they would construct it up to the property line. If you see what's on the screen right now, this is what they were proposing, was to stop the sidewalk about 10, 15 feet from the property line. So they were only requesting the design alternative for that segment. Staff had recommended denial of that, but I don't think we have anything that could require them to go any farther than their property line. But
Wait, but I thought Johnny was saying that we would want to allow them to stop it there as long as they would add it if the development comes from the south, because, as he identified, they'd have to rip it out anyway if the development comes from the south.
Is that something that we can?
well, is that railroad spur there, is that active right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the city would probably have to be the one to build this section of sidewalk across the property, in front of the property owned by the railroad right now. I don't think we could require this developer, this property owner, to extend the sidewalk in front of the neighboring property to the south. Is that what you're asking about?
No.
Oh.
The question was the property to the south had to build.
They would be able to stop
But they would stop at the railroad? Okay.
Right.
So
yeah.
it doesn't
then the
matter.
city would likely have to find some funding to fill in that
Got it.
sidewalk gap.
Okay. So then I'll just move staff as is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All right, that looks like everybody, and I think Justin left. He's back. Justin, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right. Yes, so motion carries 11-0.
No, I
Okay.
have my copy.
Thank you very much. That concludes, or do we have any committee and directors reports?
No, we do not.
Okay, that concludes our meeting. Thank you.